Good evening. I'd like to call to order this April 11th, 2018 regular board meeting of the Pullman School District, and we'll begin as we always do with our flag salute. Patrick, would you lead us this evening? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next thing we need to do is approve the agenda. Superintendent Maxwell, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, there have been two changes to tonight's agenda, depending on which version of the agenda you looked at last. So under number 4, reports, correspondence, and program, there was an E, report wellness goals. That is not happening tonight. The correct version is up on the screen. And the second change I want to note is under number 8, discussion items. A, 2409, credit for competency/proficiency. That is not on tonight's agenda. So if you have an agenda that has those two items, please scratch those. And those are the only two changes for tonight's agenda.
Okay. I would now entertain a motion regarding the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is approved. Next, we'll move on to reports, correspondence, and programming, beginning with Patrick Dinges, our PHS ASB report.
Hello, everyone. One thing happened today. It was our executive elections. So the students of Pullman High School, freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, elected a new executive president, vice president, secretary, and executive press secretary. So soon, maybe, there will be someone else standing where I am. But they all did campaign speeches that are available to watch on Hound Central just to familiarize yourselves with the candidates. A lot of them did end up running unopposed. So if you watch their videos on Hound Central's YouTube channel, that's where you can find out a little bit more about each candidate. All of them, except for the press secretary, were involved in ASB before this most recent election, but a lot of them are taking the jump from class ASB to executive ASB. And with that, our class ASB elections will be coming up also in the month of April, and I will have more information for those as they become more soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to board reports, beginning with Director Weed.
I don't have much other than Monday we were here for the installation of our beautiful new sculpture from the artist whose name is
Etsuko Ichikawa.
Okay, good. Thank you. It's fabulous, and hopefully you'll all notice it as you leave the building. You don't see it as much as you're walking in, but you do when you leave, and it's really, really fun. So that was it. And then just lots of sports activities and postseason sports, and busy, doing well. Baseball team, really good this year. So that's kind of fun. We're watching that. Soccer, same. I mean, they're all, we're blessed with good sports in more ways than one. That's it.
Thank you. Director Roberts?
First, I just wanted to apologize for missing last time. I was out in Spokane on a seminar. I also had the pleasure of going to our audit exit, and we did very well. I was going to let Jim speak more to that, but I had the reports and results to pass around to you guys, so I'm going to leave it with the board materials.
Thank you.
I also had a really great conversation afterwards with Bob about the Skills Center concept that we've been working on, and I'm just really looking forward to kind of getting some traction on that, but otherwise, nothing to report.
Thank you. Director Everman?
As Nathan said, we attended the closing of the audit, and the school district did very well. So we wanted to congratulate Diane and the administrative team for putting all the stuff together for the audit team. For those of you that are not aware, this takes about 4 to 6 weeks to complete, and they focus on different things each time. This particular audit scope was the accountability audit for 2017, the financial statement audit for 2017, and then our federal grant compliance audit for 2017. And the good news is there was no uncorrected misstatements and there was no material misstatements, and they said we did very well. In fact, they kept congratulating us, so I felt humble since I hadn't done anything. But anyway, I applaud our financial team. Thank you very much, Diane.
Kudos,
Appreciate it.
Diane.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Well done.
Now,
So,
next year, the bar is very high.
And Dr. Maxwell said that this will go into our website, go on our website, kind of an abbreviated form. Is
Yeah,
that
we
correct?
can put a notice on there, so I'll talk with
Congratulations
Shannon
to
about that.
the administrative team and
Yep.
finance officer.
It's a very good audit.
Yeah,
extremely
so I
good
was,
audit.
Yeah, I was pleased. Glad to be a member of the team.
There you are.
Just a small member. But,
You're pretty tall.
yeah. I know. But I want to be humble. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Director Tanner.
I just wanted to report that the Pullman Public Schools Food Pantry was in Olympia to accept the Governor's Service Award on Monday. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the individuals that have participated in making that successful, and congratulations.
I'll echo Director Weed when I say that the dedication of our new piece of public art was it was fantastic to see that go in. That was over a 2-year project, and thank you to Joe and all the people who helped get that project done. Nice to see it in. On a WASDA note, you may have heard that our incoming president, Neelan Tai, will be stepping down to pursue an open seat in the state legislature. And the other preferred nominee when the ballots went out last fall was Claire Wilson Maxwell.
Well, many of you have covered items I had on mine, so it shortens my report tonight, so thank you very much. I do want to recognize Joe Thornton and his transportation team. They submitted a grant to the Transportation Vehicle Fund to see if we could acquire some extra dollars to fix one of our aging buses. And we were awarded almost $20,000 towards repairs, so $19,754.63. There were 5 5 submissions. The state only awarded 2 of those, and we were one of the 2. So I just want to shout out to Joe and the transportation team. It's well done. So every dollar helps. So especially when you look at how much it costs to fix a bus. So the second one, and I try to get Joe to participate in this, but he wanted me to do it. So we get our Learning by Design architecture magazine. Comes about, I think, every quarter or so. And Pullman High School is featured as one of the Gold Award recognition pieces. So there's a nice piece on Pullman High School. So again, Joe had a lot to do with that piece. So it's the Joe Thornton night tonight. So I will pass this around. And it highlights school more and more looking like a school. And we'll attend our construction meeting tomorrow. Again, I'll post updated photographs to the website, send you your observation reports probably Friday. So that's going along very well. And the last thing on my report tonight is our fabulous, and this is really a treat, our administrative interns are going to review their projects. And we have 3 superstars coming up in the administrative ranks here, hopefully. Debbie Crabtree, Stephanie Bray, and man, certainly. So welcome. All right. I don't know who would like to go first or what you guys have planned, but
I'll go first.
Debbie.
Get it over with.
So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Debbie Crabtree, and I'm a teacher at Sunnyside Elementary, and I've been doing my internship with Pam Brantner at Sunnyside for the past 2 years. And part of our internship is to do 6 projects around the standards for principal leadership. So my first project that I worked on is about RTI, which is response to intervention. And a lot of these are the same things that you may have heard last year, but I'm going to share the changes and the things that I've done over the past year to work on them. So the first one with our RTI, do I need to click it?
Here,
Okay.
you want to try this, Debbie?
Sure. Thank you.
It's on the scroll. So.
Thank you. So when we had our RTI team 2 years ago, we were hearing from our teachers that they wanted to do interventions, but they didn't necessarily know what exactly to do or have time to go pull different things. And so we had talked about, as an RTI team, creating a resource center in our school. So if I had a student who needed help with letter sounds, I could go there, grab something that was ready for a small group that was research-based and strong curriculum that we could, or materials that we could use with them to help them get there. And so what I did this summer is we worked on creating an intervention closet. So we have leveled book sets that are at all the level, they're leveled by the same levels that we use with our intervention materials. So teachers know, I have a student that's reading at this level, or I have a group that's reading at this level, they can go get a book set for a small group and do guided reading groups with them. So instead of having to go search and find book sets, this is a ready-made resource for them to go and grab. And we also have materials set up for reading and for math, and each one of the boxes on the shelf is labeled with a specific skill that the materials cover. So phonemic awareness, knowing what sounds are in a word, they can go grab a packet and have a ready-made center for their classroom to work on. And the other thing that we've been doing with that, I've been doing coaching with teachers. So if they're not sure what to do with this group, or they have their assessment results and they're not sure where do I go next with this group of students, I've been helping coach them and know, hey, let's go to the closet, look, here's some different things you can use. So it's really helped strengthen our intervention program and our extension program. So if you have a student, if they have students or groups of students that are excelling and they need a little bit more push, they can also come here and get resources to help them. The second project that I worked on was, we started last year doing a book study on ELA best practices through OSPI with the district's elementary Title I teachers. And it started off as just a book study to kind of analyze our practice, what we were doing, how could we strengthen what we were doing. And it really actually grew into a great continuous professional development opportunity. One of the things we learned when we were going through our menu of best practices was that you needed to have continuous ongoing professional development for your paraprofessional staff that are working with your students, as well as your certified staff. So we have now every Wednesday on collaboration days in the mornings, we have all the district paraprofessional staff that work with Title I students come together, and we've been doing professional development with them. So we've worked a lot on our math skills, the things that we have been learning through our great math training that we've had. We've been sharing it with our paraprofessionals and planning days. So their consultant and I meet every time she's here, and she's also comes to all of our PBIS meetings, and we've kind of been working together to figure out how we can tie the work that Claire's doing with the work we're currently doing to make it be cohesive school-wide. Because PBIS really is the same thing as Claire, and they're two different names, but they're the same program. And so we've been working on having common expectations and language throughout the building, having a monthly character trait focus that we're working on. It's displayed throughout the building. We have posters all around. And this month we're working on kindness, so all the kids know that we're working on kindness. When Pam does the announcements every Monday morning, she has a little quote about kindness that she'll talk about, or whatever our character trait is. And then we have monthly assemblies. And the picture on the bottom is from our September assembly. Each class has a class banner that they make that shows our school rules. And then at the assemblies, we teach the character trait of the month and give them a little mini lesson on whatever our trait is, whether it's honesty or respect or careful. And then the teachers all write a compliment to their class about the previous month's character trait. So they're on the back of the banners, and the kids get to read the class compliment to the whole school, and their teacher gives them a compliment. And it just kind of builds that community and strengthens what we're doing with our behavior expectations. The next project is our family learning nights, which started off as one learning night and has just really also expanded. So I've been collaborating with a parent at Sunnyside who's also a doctoral student at WSU and the College of Ed. And so we've had that great partnership he's got a lot of resources that he brings as well. And we've partnered with different community organizations. Neal Public Library donated a large amount of books to our last one so we could give every student a free book that came to our night. And we've had a huge family participation. We've had about 60 to 70 students come, but they come with their entire family. So we're sitting at about 300, 350 people at every learning night that we've had. We've had a STEM one, a literacy one, our last one was a math one, and we have another STEM one coming up this year. So it's been great and fun, and the next slide has some pictures of people that were the families learning, and it's so great to see the parents and the kids doing activities together. And it's the purpose of the night isn't just to come and do things, but to show the parents ways that they can take everyday activities at home and tie it into learning as well. And so the WSU parent that I have has been making parent guides that they can take home and say, hey, if you're cooking, here's some things you could do to integrate math or to integrate reading into it. And my final project was our school-wide Title I application. And so we spent a lot of time last year working on becoming a school-wide Title I school, which basically just changes how our funding and how we can use the resources that we have in our building. And we became a school-wide Title I school, so our application went through. And this year I've transitioned to being the Title I teacher, so I've been really still involved with a lot of the work that we did with that, even though the application process is done. But we've been doing a lot of great things with school-wide Title I and being able to serve more students. So that is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there's
Thank you,
any
Debbie.
questions, I'm...
Thank you.
Looks like Stephanie's going next. So.
So you'll have to excuse me. I'm going to bend this down a little bit. It just makes the presentation more interesting. So in our school district, I was first grade teacher at Sunnyside, then a TOSA for 2 years for the school district, and now I'm back in the classroom at Sunnyside in first grade. My internship was based with Bill Holman at Franklin Elementary. This is the boring slide, has all of our standards for Washington State Principal Certification. Debbie and I are done in May, so we're excited. Yay! Samantha will be there soon. So for visionary leadership, last year I worked quite hard, and the year before on response to intervention. And not just at Franklin Elementary, but at all 3 of our elementaries as a whole. And I was able to create a process for our meetings and come up with a standard document to keep all scheduling, as well as having an end of the year document so that each teacher for the next year will be informed of every week of intervention that child has gone through, what the results were, and what the outcome of the team was, so that student would be aligned to receive intervention the next year or not receive intervention because they've made the growth that they needed to do or needed to have. At Franklin and Sunnyside and Jefferson, it's now not only seen as a 6-week process, intervention is actually seen as an 18-week process. And if intervention is working, that's a good thing. The progress may be slow, but if the intervention is working, that's what our goal is. Our test to qualify ratio, what that means is the students that we were presenting to be put forward for special education services, at Franklin, we were at 62%. So that means that the students that we put forward to testing, 62% of those students were qualifying. And so after this process and after about 1.5 years of realigning the processes and changing expectations and changing perceptions, last year our percent to qualify ratio was 90%. It was really exciting. Communication is now fluid. We have a grade level member at each meeting. for the team, and teachers come and talk about their students and talk about interventions. And the biggest benefit of all of this is student intervention. We have students now receiving quality research-based interventions in the classroom with differentiated instruction. For instructional improvement, this isn't just at Franklin. This was, it kind of helped not only our new teachers at Franklin, but new teachers across our district. I had the opportunity to create a new teacher orientation manual, as well as begin new teacher orientation for curriculum and assessment for our new teachers. So we had a day, and Roberta participated in that her first year. And it's about a 3-hour half day where they can come in and not only hear about the finance, but also in all the paperwork, but they also learn about what our district initiatives are. They learn about what our curriculum is, which are the standards and the materials that they can use for that. They learn about MMRE, which is making math reasoning explicit. They learn about all of our goals. I participated in TPEP training, created a teacher survival guide for new teachers, and helped coordinate training with our local ESD to come and help train for our new teachers. FullDay Kindergarten implementation. Dr. Maxwell provided me that opportunity as a TOSA. Have you guys heard that before? Provided the opportunity for me to spearhead this great opportunity for Pullman School District. So I coordinated training and collaboration with local districts in Eastern Washington. So we were able to take our teachers to Cheney School District and have them view what a full day kindergarten looks like, to keep notes, to ask questions. We kept in contact with them. We also went to a training. We took all of our kindergarten teachers, new to be kindergarten teachers, and Dr. Maxwell, to learn about some best practices in kindergarten. Created a kindergarten implementation manual, created a parent guide for students that are entering full day kindergarten, as well as coordinating the parent information night that happens in May for our new parents to Pullman School District. The scope and sequence, I worked with kindergarten teachers in collaboration with that, so we created a scope and sequence for all subject areas, as well as an assessment notebook for each and every one of our brand new kindergarten students. And much like Debbie, we both saw a need for parent-family learning nights. And so my night focused on making math reasoning explicit. We had over 100 parents and students. I coordinated with businesses for food and drinks, because food and drinks always help. We collaborated with staff, and we conducted 2 rich tasks, and our parents loved it. And so Franklin has continued that tradition of having more family nights for the teachers, for the students, and for the kids, or parents, sorry about that. And this is my Project Inspire, and I'm going to give my voice a rest. This is a video. We created a video for kids and parents to see why teachers come to school every day, why we do the jobs that we do. I also was able to help a senior, and he helped to create this video for his senior project, and he was able to graduate last year, so it was exciting. Oh, there it is. Oh, and so just a note on this. I'll probably stop it early for time purposes.
Sit right there. That'd be great.
How are you doing, Miguel?
Good.
Good. Do you know why you're here today?
Well, Miguel, I wanted to talk to you about something really special. Okay. You know, this week in our Storytown Reader,
we've been reading about different artists and what inspires them to create their works. And although I'm not an artist, there are some things that definitely inspire me to be a teacher. Things that kind of make me excited to come to work every day and to meet whatever challenge is in store for that day. Do you know what inspires me, Miguel? Well, I'll tell you. Something pretty special inspires me, and that's you.
Yay!
You inspire me, Miguel.
Yay!
Okay, well, have a seat, and you're going to learn why you're here today. It's going to be so exciting.
I feel weird.
You feel weird.
Like a teacher.
Like a teacher? Do teachers feel weird? Sometimes?
You know what, Aaliyah, I want you to come down to the office today because I want to tell you that you are an amazing student and that I like to come to work every day because you're here. Do you know that? And I love how strong you are and how you stick up for yourself and you tell kids when it's not okay to do things, and you also stick up for other kids. And that's a really big deal as a kindergartner. Did you know that? And I wanted to say that you are an amazing student and thank you for being in my class and doing such a good job every single day. And that's why you're here. How's that? Is that an okay reason to be in the office?
All right, William, I was asked to think of a student that inspires me to come to school every day, and I thought of you. You are so compassionate. You have a kind heart, and I can always count on you to help others with their projects, to play with people who need friends, and even just read with classmates who need help. You're a good friend to everyone in class. Everybody loves you. You're even a good friend to Alex, who just visits our class. But you show the class how to be a good friend with him by being calm and always including him and speaking directly to him, because you know he's a person just like the rest of our class. Thank you. You're a wonderful student, and you inspire me to be a better teacher. Thank you.
All right, what do you think?
Good.
I'm great.
Doing?
Yes, but we can edit.
So, Rukia, do you know why you're here?
No.
I brought you here today because you are a student in my classroom that inspires me to be the best teacher that I can be every single day. So I wanted to tell you thank you for being you. I want to tell you a couple of the reasons why. Does that sound good? Mm-hmm. Is that nice to be here? I just wrote down a few of the things that you inspire me, why you inspire me, because you are such a wonderful person in so many ways. You always work hard in everything you do, don't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You always seek information. If you don't feel like you got something, you always ask or find out, look into it. Sometimes you look into it on your own. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you ask other students, but you always seek information if you don't get something. Mm-hmm. I love that. That's a lifelong learner, right? You always listen intently to anybody who's sharing in the classroom. Teachers, students, adult helpers, the field trip participants. You listen to everybody and try to soak up as much knowledge as you can, always. I love that about you. You always have a positive, smile-full face and attitude towards everything. I love it. You set goals, and you work hard to reach those goals on your own. You have so many more goals than anyone knows because they're all right up in your head, don't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you always are working on to improve something and kind of reach towards the stars. Mm-hmm. For something that you're looking for, always. You always take time to think before you talk or act, and that's a wonderful quality. It's one that I wish I had for myself, so I would try to emulate you that way. You're a great friend, a great classmate, and just an awesome member of our Franklin community, so thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being you. You're welcome. That's it.
schools. And Debbie talked a little bit about this. I assisted in a lot of the data gathering for our school-wide Title I waiver. And all 3 elementaries are now school-wide title, and that's very exciting. And I'm hoping that we can keep that funding. It means meeting more kids where they're at and helping all students to succeed. We completed all 4 components, and they were all granted. My goals, I would love to receive my admin credential. If OSPI Standards Board will approve me, fingers crossed, to continue to work in the Pullman School District, and at some point to become an assistant principal or principal in the Pullman School District. And thank you. Leave you with a little quote and any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Samantha.
I'm Samantha Sturtenlieb, and I am just beginning this journey. I teach 8th grade Earth Science at Lincoln Middle School, and so I'm beginning my first year here. So you're seeing more of my plans of what my projects will look like, and then I'll come to you next year with all the awesomeness that they are. So right now they're hopes, and we'll see what comes of them. So for visionary leadership, socio-political context, and inclusive practices, I have started to look at cultural competency with the help of Cameron Grow at Lincoln Middle School. And so he is sending me to an OSPI diversity conference in May in Seattle so that I can start to figure out what those components are. I'm going to be looking at data from a student survey that I developed, and I'll give that in the science classes. All three teachers will give that next week, and we'll start to look at where students are feeling safe, where they are feeling a little bit more hesitant in behaviors or for answering. So we're going to examine our culture. And then hopefully that data will help Cameron and I to guide where we need to go. What areas do we need to address? What areas are working well? And how do we make everybody feel safe and welcome as they come? We got 7 new students at Lincoln Middle School just this week in the 3 days we've been in school. So we have so many different people with so many different needs coming in. We need to make sure they all feel safe and welcome, and that is what this first project will look at. So right now it's a really big overarching how do I do that, and I'm going to start with data by gathering that from our students' perspective and going to conferences so I can learn what we need to start addressing. Instructional improvement. I did 2 LID days this year, one in the fall and one in the spring. And in those LID days, I was working with teachers of all grades, and we were looking at notebooking, science notebooking, to bring in the literacy and the writing into science, and then giving assessment menus. So with my 8th graders, they have 20 options when they take a test. So they can take the written test, or they can do things like rap. I had somebody do Hamilton, redo all of the music to match earthquakes. So she performed for me pretty much the entire play about earthquakes. So it's meeting the students where they are, where their strengths are. So talking to our elementary teachers about how they can do that and teaching them how to do that. So I've worked with a few of them over at Jefferson throughout the year on how to do that, and it's been pretty exciting to see the results. And then we did a follow-up in March for the LID day on that, and more people came in. And so I've met with about 10 teachers on how to use the menus and how to do interactive notebooks and supported them this year. Effective management. I'm the assistant AD at Lincoln Middle School, just to kind of add more excitement to my life. So, well, that can do it. It definitely did. So I forgot to grab my notebook, but I had to figure out a way to monitor all of this and to share with Tammy. And so we're both doing the AD position, and we needed to figure out how to communicate. So we developed this notebook, and in the notebook I have all of the people that we play. So I get all of the buses, I get all of the refs, I get all of the facilities for any of our athletic events that Lincoln Middle School participates in. So I had to create a system that was really easy to look at for anybody who needed to know where the team was, how they were getting there, what time they had to be there, and where the refs confirmed. So this is the notebook that people can reference for any of our sports and any of our seasons and know where people are and how they're getting there. So this is a work in progress. It'll hopefully get a little bit more clear, and Tammy and I both use this. So this is one way to effectively communicate and manage what we need to do. And then inclusive practices, we started the ambassadors program. And so for the ambassadors program, this is a group of 45 kids, 15 from each grade level, and they were interviewed in the fall and then brought in and trained by me for 3 days on the history of Lincoln Middle School, so they can tell you how many classrooms, how many teachers, when it was revised. They can go through all of that with you. They were trained on giving tours. So how do we talk to the adults? How do we talk to the adults when they're with their kids? How do we talk to just the kids when the adults have been taken into a different tour? And we practiced those. So it was very interesting to hear them give tours to each other, because we had to, stand up straight and walk down the hall quietly and say not bad things about other teachers. We had to learn those etiquette pieces of not dissing on other people. So when we did that, now we have those kids matched up when we get those new students. So we have a list in the office of these 45 kids. And when we get 5 of them like we did on Monday, we pull those 5 and we have them take the tours. They are the buddies for these kids for the entire day. They sit with them at lunch. We ask them to sit with these kids for the entire first week so that they're not alone and left. And with all 15 ambassadors, each grade level, we ask them to all sit with each other. So those new kids are surrounded with people. Our ambassadors created a welcome letter, and we are in the process of getting that translated appropriately into Korean, to Chinese, to Japanese, into Spanish, and into Russian, so that we can meet the needs of those people, that when they come in, we have a letter that says, "Welcome to the Lincoln Middle School family," in a language that they can understand. So those are the projects that I'm working on, and those that we are kind of big, broad spectrum. And I have more fun, exciting stuff, I guess, for next year, because there's just not much to tell you right now. I'm sorry.
No, thank you very much.
Do you guys have any questions for me?
No, it sounds exciting.
Marvelous. Okay, then I'll see you in a year.
Okay, I'm going to add something.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead. You go first.
Okay, I'm going to go first. A piece that Debbie and Stephanie did not share with you, that is not a part of work that they might have done in our schools, but is a huge undertaking, is they, as a part of the project for WSU, is they create a bookend seminar, which is a humongous undertaking, where they essentially develop everything related to professional development for first and second year students, interns, and then they procure the speakers, they do the food, they do everything from top to bottom, this whole bookend experience. Anything in between those bookends they're responsible for. And they asked Megan and I to be a part of the presentation, and it was, I enjoyed presenting, but what I really enjoyed was experiencing what a truly well done opportunity it was for those participants. So I was very, very, very proud of them. They do great work here, and Samantha was a participant in that, and next year she'll get to be a part of leading it. And they set the bar very, very high. So it was just very impressive. So, and they both do, all 3 of them do a great job. I've worked a lot more with Stephanie and Debbie in their roles as interns, but Samantha's cranking it up more and more all the time.
And I would just add, hopefully you heard through the 3 different presentations how much that correlates with our strategic plans, our goals, different items that we've had a focus on and continue to focus on. So it matches up very well with the work that they've been doing, and we really appreciate, I really appreciate, and I know the staff and students and community appreciate everything they've done, because a lot of those projects have been extremely important and valuable to our community and to our students and staff. So again, I just applaud all the work that they've done, and they are great opportunities as well. So.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Great. The next part of our agenda is the visitors section. The visitors section is a portion of the agenda for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or a member of a group. Visitors addressing the board will go to the microphone and state their name and address prior to presenting their information. The board will listen and may offer clarification, but will not discuss the topic at this time. The board may consider moving the topic presented to a future meeting date as a discussion item. Please keep your comments civil and respectful and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And we don't have anyone signed in yet, but would anyone care to address the board this time? Okay. No one's rushing to the podium, so we will move on to the consent agenda. To expedite business at a board meeting, the board approves the use of a consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item which appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the consent agenda by a member of the board and voted on separately. And the remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. Would anyone care to remove an item from the consent agenda?
I will move that we approve the consent agenda as presented this evening.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and I'll just, we don't normally discuss the consent agenda, but I'll ask. We're approving overnight field trip requests just in case all of these sports make it to the state championship, is that?
That is correct, and that's to avoid a situation where they qualify and then we don't have a board meeting to approve. So this is just a preemptive measure. And also, I think we have a strong chance of going to many of the state tournaments this spring, but this is just to be proactive to make sure that we can get your approval ahead of time, because many times what we found in spring is that they qualify and then there's not a board meeting until after the state tournament, and by policy we're supposed to get pre-approval for that. So.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Consent agenda is approved. Next, we move on to action items, beginning with Policy 2000, Student Learning Goals.
I'm going to try to not take it personally that those three are exiting us. Okay, Policy 2000, Student Learning Goals. There are no changes since the last board meeting. And if you remember, it was just some additional language to make for greater clarification.
Right. Is there a motion regarding Policy 2000?
With a variety of audiences.
That's always been a part of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's just, for some reason in mine, it's underlined.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been a part of that learning goal, but it was not included in the policy, so it just cleaned it up.
Oh, it's interesting, because I just read an article about kids reading to dogs in the pound. And I thought, well, there's a variety of audiences. Maybe it's all kind of.
And it's the ability for kids to communicate in a variety of audiences, write, speak, read, I guess. That's so that they have good reading practice. That's what that's about.
I would make a motion to approve Policy 2000 or 2000.
I will second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to Policy 2000 Student Learning Goals. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Those are approved. Next, Policy 3244, Prohibition of Corporal Punishment.
And this one was the only change since the last meeting was to fix the Pullman School District Board of Directors to make it consistent with the rest of our policies.
And it looks like some cross-references have been added
Yes.
as well.
Yep.
Yes.
So I wasn't at the last meeting, but was this not a policy beforehand?
No, surprisingly, it wasn't. Nathan.
Okay, nice. Because I was like, I wonder what they edited on this.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't at all, this is a
No,
totally
it
new
did.
policy.
Yeah, it was,
Okay.
but it's a essential policy.
Oh, definitely. No, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
The law has been there, and it's a part of code of ethics and different other components, but.
But explicitly stating it's
Yes.
not been, okay. No, I move that we approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve
3244.
Policy 3244, Prohibition of Corporal Punishment. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Next, we move on to new policy 4060, Distribution of Materials.
Thank you very much. So, So again, this is, this policy was created to align with the WASDA policy 4060 and incorporate elements and then eliminate district policy 4321. So we had a misnumbering of our policy, and the procedure's been created by incorporating a WASDA sample and elements of the existing policy. So, as we spoke last time, so we've deleted some of this. We made sure the elements of the policy that I'll ask you to delete in E, or excuse me, not that one. So this has been cleaned up, and I don't think we had any recommended changes from last time.
I'll move that we approve 4060.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve new policy 4060, which incorporates a lot of an old policy 4231. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, policy 4237, contests, advertising, and promotions.
Okay. Oops. Well. Okay. All right. So this policy was created to align with WASDA policy 4237 and to incorporate elements and then eliminate district policy 4321. The policy is a revised version of WASDA sample and included the board feedback from last time. So this has been cleaned up quite a bit. And there were no recommended changes from our last board meeting with this newly revised.
Except in the first line.
Except in the first line. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So the Pullman School District Board of Directors shall support, and it had policy in there, so we took that out. So one grammatical correction.
I move to approve policy 4237.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve policy 4237, contests, advertising, and promotions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Seemingly not. Okay. And finally, we have policy 4321 now slated for deletion as it has been incorporated.
Correct.
Into
So
these others.
This has been incorporated into one that you just approved. So there were no changes to this deletion.
Move that we approve to delete 4321.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we delete the policy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good. Excellent. Now we have policy 6700, nutrition and physical fitness, presented by our Executive Director of Operations, Joe Thornton.
So at the last meeting, you had a question about what it means when it says using the full entitlement of USDA foods. I asked Sheba, and just as I had suspected, entitlement, this is from her, entitlement is the amount of commodity dollars the USDA gives food service each year. Only schools that part of the USDA school lunch benefit breakfast program are entitled to these dollars. Ideally, they spend that all down. It's really impossible to spend it all completely. This year, we're looking at about $64,000 worth of dollars. Next year, she's anticipating it being about $73,000. Last year, she was able to spend all but 57 cents. So she couldn't spend it all, but she came very close.
That's awesome.
So it's not an entitlement as far as a pallet of peanut butter. It's a dollar amount. And then most of that we're buying through the co-op we have with Spokane Schools with their buying power. So that's what the line entitlement means.
Thank you for researching that.
I move approval of policy 6700.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 6700, nutrition and physical fitness. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Good. Now we come to our single discussion item of the evening, which is the elementary attendance boundary revisions. And thank you, members of the boundary committee, for being here.
Joe and I are tag teaming this.
Oh,
Great.
triple team? Oh, no.
No, Joe, Bob is just assisting.
Oh, good.
Really important to clarify.
Yeah. Thank you.
Seems like yesterday, yeah, I'll take one of those. It seems like yesterday that we were here, that we were just beginning to have this conversation about boundaries and knowing that we needed to do the work, and wow, now we're here to share information with you. We are thrilled that we have 4 members of the committee, Meg, Vadim, Megan, and Tammy. Tammy is an ex officio, like Joe and I and Bob and Shannon and Megan. Megan Atani. We have more than one Meg in. We have Meg, Megan, Megan. So, but they have been with us through thick and thin, through the entire process. Oh, yeah, we need that PowerPoint. It's going to click right there to it.
Are you driving or am I driving?
I was driving. You want to drive?
You drive.
Okay.
Just somebody take the wheel.
The wheel's up.
Okay,
Here, I'll give you the.
we need a PowerPoint.
There we go. I got this.
You got that.
I think we're good.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so as we've shared with you before, we need to do attendance boundaries because we have the great problem of adding a new elementary school. And as you know, it's rising on the north end of our district, and we're very excited about it. So we're going from 3 to 4 elementary schools. We've had some lack of transportation efficiency because, unbeknownst to me, we had defined boundaries in our school district for walkers. But anyone beyond that, any kids that were on bus, could go to any one of 3 elementary schools. And so last summer, when I had a parent come in, meet with me and say, gosh, I'm really trying, I want my child to go with their neighbor to school. Well, in that just span of 3 homes, one was going to Franklin, one family was going to Sunnyside, and one family was going to Jefferson. And that just, to me, told such a story of, wow, our kids in their neighborhoods aren't going to school together, and we've got work to do. So, thus, we're at the point of making attendance boundaries. So our first component was to seek community feedback, and so we used Thought Exchange for that process, gathered their feedback, asked 2 questions, and we'll talk more about that coming up and what the responses were to those 2 questions as to really what are the 2 things what are the most important things that you want us to consider, and then what questions do you have. So really trying to get to how is it that you feel about this, and then what do you wonder. We put together a committee for folks who are here with us this evening, but really trying to look at a diverse group of folks, from making sure that we had elementary principals and elementary staff or parents, and then we had a parent from College Hill. Vadim represents College Hill, and then one from a busable area, and then other folks from within the district, community representatives, one from PEF, and then a former board member who's been a part of that. These are the names of the folks that have been engaged in this, lots and lots and lots of work. We met a lot of times, and I can't remember, Joe might know exactly how many hours we met. Oh, no, we had 6 meetings, but lots of hours. That's way more than 6 hours. And there was time for outside study, lots of things. One of the things that we did as a group was we developed a charter or a set of rules to work by, because we know that anytime you consider changing school boundaries, it's an emotional issue. There's a lot about who we are as we identify with what school we went to, what school our children went to. The one thing that we were fortunate about is that we were constructing attendance areas for elementary only. We weren't a district that had to do elementary, middle, and high. If we want to envy a district right now that's in the process of that, that's Central Valley. They've redone elementary a lot. They've redone elementary, that now they're working on middle school, and then they're adding a 3rd high school. So that's, talk about a lot of revisiting. So the rules piece was really important, so we could go back to what structures did we establish in this process. We had, and a part of the preparation process was for us to work with the city planner and have Pete come in and talk to us about potential growth, because we know that that's something we have to consider in our community because it is growing so quickly. And then the guiding principles really came from that thought exchange feedback. So remember, that was something that I was going to go back to. A huge piece to that thought exchange feedback was to consider future growth. We know where that growth is going to occur. We have to plan for that. We don't want to be back doing this every year. No. I don't think anyone wants to be doing that. Another piece was, it's really important to our community that our schools reflect the diversity in our community. We're proud of that diversity. Pullman, where the world comes to us, and we want that to be reflected in all of our schools. We wanted to create that continuity within neighborhoods, including those rural neighborhoods. In the rural neighborhoods, even when we were at one point in this process, we probably got to be more and more clear as we went along about really including that rural area as a part of a school, and ensuring that all schools reflected that. We wanted to minimize the number of families that were impacted, but we have to also remember that we're going to have about 420 students go to Kamiak Elementary School, so we're going to impact families. There's no doubt about it. And then really to look at that, how much time are kids spending on the bus, getting to and from school, looking at that efficiency, but also the safety of our children. And the safety, we've got some spots that we will identify that are unsafe for kids, unsafe walking areas. So then, we engaged with a company called Flow Analytics out of Portland to work with them on, there are some very precise ways that they can look at data and help us to look at certain components of our community as we examine who lives where, and it helps us to then get to that more diverse balance across our system, numbers, not just numbers, but also looking at other socioeconomic, ethnic makeup, all of those components. So they worked with us. We had a consultant with us at all of the meetings, like meetings 3 through 6. I think that we had a consultant there. So Joe's going to take it over from here.
For a while, you have to come back.
Yeah, I'll just...
And before I forget, I want to take an opportunity to thank the committee members, not only the ones that are here tonight, but their time and energy for this process, especially for, I believe, especially for the parents and the principals on this committee. It was a very emotional, volatile issue, but they handled it with great very professionally, so I appreciate your time and energy and dedication to that. As school board members, I think you're probably already experiencing that this is a very emotional issue for people, and we get it. But one of the things that jumps out at me, I want to point out, is people love the school they're currently attending. I have not heard, oh, thank God I'm getting out of that school. People love the school they're currently attending, and I think that is going to continue. And the motto that we heard from, I think it was Evan Hecker came up with, 1 new building, 4 new schools, and they're going to be 4 quality schools. So with that, these are all slides you've seen before. I just want to run back and kind of refresh your memory on it. So one of the things that was very important for us to look at growth, and this is information we got from the city, and is very much for the city and for us, it is a lot like reading the tea leaves. Because a developer will put in for this, but we don't have any control over how quickly that's going to happen. So for example, I think that this development on the south end of town, Sundown South, is actually going to happen more slowly than this thing up here, which is actually now called Collegiate. The Trinity Cottages on this is called Collegiate by their permit. I think that's going to happen more quickly because they're apparently breaking ground this summer and are planning to just go gangbusters on that. The city doesn't have any control over that, neither do we. We looked at current attendance areas and where kids are, and you can see they're pretty much clustered around schools, but we have a lot of neighborhoods like here, College Hill, where we truly have kids living next door to each other going to different elementary schools. We talked about free and reduced lunch density. We talked about a student location in town. Yes, most of our population lives in town, but we also have a pretty significant rural population that we need to get to school. And yes, I'm grateful that currently we do not have anybody living here, and we do not have anybody living here, but that will probably eventually happen. We talked about safe walking zones. Again, these are things that we don't create, but we have to deal with. For example, Grand is not a safe crossing for elementary students. Maine is not a safe crossing. Bishop is not a safe crossing, as is Hawaii Road. We didn't create this monster. We didn't build Hawaii Road without sidewalks. We didn't make Hawaii Road 35 miles an hour. We didn't build Hawaii Road without crosswalks. My guess is when Susan first started driving out to the radio station, it was it was 50.
State and you could go 50 miles an hour.
Is it sometimes still 50?
No. Well, depends who's driving.
My point exactly.
Sometimes I revert.
So there are things that are out there that we just have to deal with in terms of student safety. Because unfortunately, for us as a district, sometimes we're not at all at fault, but we're liable. We also talked about potential revision areas. So these are blocks of neighborhoods that Flow Analytics can hone in on and look at that demographic for us. And then look for the rural areas, and then we kind of layer all these things together and go from there. The challenges we face, we talked about these before, is trying to mix all these things between the makeup of the schools, between economics, special education, and the diversity. We talked about the benefits of this community work. We talked about the group consensus model we used to move proposals, ideas forward. And we talked about the things that we did not pick and why we felt as if they were not going to fit with our guiding principles. We talked about school capacity, how we wanted to identify Sunnyside as needing the most growth capacity because that's where the city is saying that's where most of your development is going to happen. And we left it at this with you, and we were saying we needed to go look at the next steps was to figure out the rural areas. So after we talked to you in February, the next meeting we had with the committee was to look at those rural areas. And after working with transportation and getting some great feedback from Tammy at KIP and KIP at transportation, we came forward with 2 proposals for the committee to look at. One of them was kind of looking at an old quadrant approach to the district, which the district used to have years ago, and that used highway, is it 194? 194 that goes down to Almona, 195 south, highway 27 north, and highway 270 over to Idaho as the dividing lines. And then we also looked at one that was a little bit different because this didn't fit very well with transportation routes. For example, There is no way to get from here to here with the school bus. There is with a car or with a four-wheel drive pickup, but not with a school bus because we can't drive on dirt roads. We can drive on paved roads and gravel roads, but not dirt roads. So then we also looked at this option, which was using Highway 195 north to Colfax, using kind of what I describe as a dividing point out here to the east, which is no man's land, which goes from Boyd to O'Donnell Road, if you know where those are. And it kind of divides it out in an area where currently nobody lives, and nobody's really lived for a long time. It's basically farmland out there. It uses Highway 27 out to Idaho as a divider, and then this dividing line is Hawaii Road heading south. But you'll notice the line is east of that, and that's so that we don't have a situation where we're running a bus out Hawaii Road and one bus has to pick up the kids on this side of the road and one bus has to pick up the kids on this side of the road. So both sides of the road will be picked up by one bus. So, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
This is why is a school district shaped in this funny kind of fractal way?
How much time do we have? Bob, I'm going to hand that one off to you. Bob or Roberta?
Thanks a lot. It's interesting enough, I was discussing the school boundaries and how they've been decided, and many of these were decided decades and decades ago, and it happens to be back when, if you looked at Whitman County, you had probably 80 schools, 80 school districts, because they were one schoolhouse districts, and over time local communities, as those folded or combined, and that's why you get some of these really bizarre.
Well, the
and
keyhole in particular is just...
The keyhole, and some of it has to do with geographic conditions, and I still don't know why we also jump over the other side of the Snake River. If we ever do have a student on that side, we're really going to be...
You need to go by boat.
Go by boat, probably. So
okay.
There is a process through OSPI to adjust school boundaries. It takes... any changes now have to be approved through an OSPI process, and sometimes that does happen, especially when you're in a congested districts where they join in an urban setting or a suburban setting, and where you might have a development that all of a sudden spans two different district lines. There is a process to redraw those lines, but it takes a long time. It's very complicated in that both districts have to then negotiate who's going to get how many houses from each development and how that balances, and then you have to decide on redrawing the lines, get the map folks involved, and then OSPI has to have the final blessing on it. But it's a very complicated, and it has evolved over probably 100 years, but back then it probably made sense when they were much smaller, and then as those incorporated, or has Pullman incorporated some of these tiny one schoolhouse districts at that time, and it's basically who was claiming them and how did they dissolve, and then they formalize more of their boundary.
Oh.
Also, it has something to do with accessibility and the roads that are out there and the hills and all that kind of stuff. That affects some of the boundaries.
And I bet that little keyhole is one where there's probably not a direct gravel road even anywhere to the north end of that, but from the south end there probably is.
If you look at a map of the districts for the state, OSPI has a link you can go to. This is actually probably one of the more normal shaped districts, because there are some districts, especially the ones that run up the west side of the Cascades, that are very long and narrow. I mean, they're just, it's interesting.
Okay. Sorry for the diversion.
That's okay. So, all said and done, the committee decided to incorporate with what was already moving forward, which was the in-town attendance area, to incorporate this plan as the rural routes. And one of the things we like about that, it starts to make the boundaries for these four elementary schools start to look kind of the same size. Obviously, Jefferson's a little bit of an outlier because it's kind of a long, narrow one, but a lot of this is dictated by terrain, and a lot of this is dictated by what's logical as far as running transportation. And again, like along the highway here, heading 195 north, students living on both sides of that highway will go to one school and attempt to make them in the same neighborhood. Same thing, like I said, heading out here. Students living on Hawaii Road will be in a neighborhood. So with that, that was what we moved forward and took to the open house, which was on March 14th.
Okay, so we had about 40 people that attended the open house. And the format was that we did two presentations. Two presentations were available. Joe and I did those so that folks didn't have to all be there at 5:30. They could come a little bit later and still hear kind of what the plan was moving forward. We got feedback. You can see how many times the Facebook was looked at, same with the website. And then we emailed parents, and they were very well informed that this was happening, okay? We got 19 responses back based on that. And I really believe there was ample opportunity for people to provide us with feedback and for us to hear their voices. There's one thing I do want to mention is that two of the parents that are here tonight, Megan, they're both impacted by this. Their child's attendance areas change. Another parent that was on the committee was under those circumstances. That was all by luck. We had luck, chance, what do we want to call it? That was something that happened. So they bring a really unique perspective to this conversation. Unlike, if somebody isn't affected, it's a very different kind of a conversation than those who are, but they truly are impacted by this. This is a summary of the feedback that we received. Again, this is all the comments that we received and have categorized them. If the proposal changes to make sure that the committee has the community has another chance to provide feedback. Don't move certain areas. There's feedback. I appreciate that they're pleased with the socioeconomic diversity in the proposal. Again, not always pleased with which school it might be, but the one piece is, please all Albion students will attend CAMYAC. Those right now, kids ride all the way in. Some of them, they stay on the bus, they ride all the way to Franklin or Lincoln or whatever, do some sort of a transfer at somewhere. I don't know, Tammy does some magical thing. And then they're at all three schools. And this will certainly shorten their bus ride and keep that community together.
What's the Big Sky Court?
We can show you on a map
Yeah,
in a second.
we're going to talk about that specifically.
It's right by, do you know where the radio station is? Out on the Hawaii Road, the backside. It's where it used to be an old drive-in movie theater there. So it's across from the Whispering Hills or whatever they call that development.
Kind of Sunnyside Park area.
Yeah.
Other side.
They call it Big Sky because that was the name of the drive-in movie theater back in the day. It's all, I get to go by it every day.
Okay, so then we had a March 27th committee meeting. We considered the feedback. This is pretty small print. It is for you on this quick reference summary.
They don't have this here.
Oh, they don't have this? Okay, all right, sorry. So let me explain this to you, okay? So prior to coming to you with even just our initial draft of a proposal, I don't know what we called that, proposal number one? That was proposal number one before we added the rural areas. We had conversations about Sunnyside option 1, Sunnyside option 2, and Sunnyside option 3. All three are related specifically to the Hannah-Santa area, one of to the Big Sky Court and also to the Crestview, south of Crestview area. We had looked at proposals generated by our group to address all of those prior even to the March 27th meeting. In our initial stages, we were having those conversations. We recognized those as areas that were going to be of concern. So the committee had had time to, we had already spent time with those ideas, and then had still, the solution wasn't there to make any of those work. And so you'll see the diversity and all of those pieces were challenges, particularly capacity. If we look at any one of those three options, capacity at Sunnyside rises. And we don't have the capacity there based on planning for future growth, which is one of our guiding principles. So we landed at proposal number 2. And Joe's going to go into lots of detail with that right now.
And real quickly, so knowing that the feedback we got from the open house was, please consider these neighborhoods back with Sunnyside. And I shouldn't say back with Sunnyside, because they were never, ever a Sunnyside neighborhood. Many of the students who lived there might have gone to Sunnyside, but they were not Sunnyside neighborhoods. I'll talk about that more in a second. So knowing that feedback we got from the open house, we asked Flow Analytics to give us these numbers before we met with the committee on the 27th. Although, like Roberta said, as a group, as small groups, as breakout groups during our committee work early on, we looked at these numbers. We considered these numbers. We considered these different variables. So what we talked about with the committee on the 27th was Sunnyside option 1, and that involved taking Big Sky Court and the Hannah, Santa, Marcia neighborhood and pulling them back into Sunnyside, and what that would do with our numbers. And it took us over what we saw as our target starting enrollment for Sunnyside. Sunnyside option 2 was leaving those neighborhoods where they are now, which is Jefferson, and pulling the neighborhood south of Crestview back into Sunnyside. That was a neighborhood that currently is a Sunnyside neighborhood. And then option 3 was pulling the south of Crestview and the Big Sky Court and the Santa Marcia neighborhood back into Sunnyside. And as a committee, we felt all 3 of those took us away from that guiding principle, which is having that starting point capacity at Sunnyside where we needed to be in anticipation of future growth. So that being said, the consensus of the committee on the 27th was to move forward with this as our proposal to you to consider for the new elementary attendance zones. And that's the map you see in front of you. A couple things I want to point out. There are 2 neighborhoods that are currently assigned to a particular elementary school that are shifting. Those 2 neighborhoods are this neighborhood south of Crestview, okay, which is currently, the way school runs now, the way schools run now is currently at Sunnyside because it's considered walkable. Well, after lots of discussions, we're going to move forward recommending to the state that we declare Crestview not a safe crossing route. There's bad visibility, there's lots of traffic, there's no crosswalks, there's lots of turns and stuff. So part of it is a concern there. The other neighborhood that was traditionally with an elementary school that's changing is everything that is north of Greyhound and Larry. All that neighborhood, even though it's not walkable, we provide busing, has been at Jefferson for years. Well, that is now being peeled off and going to Kamiak. So that's the neighborhood that's going to be going to Kamiak, and our proposal involves this neighborhood going to Jefferson. There are other, thank you.
Franklin.
Good catch, Franklin. There are other neighborhoods impacted, yes, but those are neighborhoods that are not assigned to a particular school at this point in time. So, this whole swath up here, many of those kids might be going to Sunnyside currently, but we have kids going everywhere because that's a busable area. Obviously, College Hill has kids going everywhere, and I think one of the exciting things about this proposal, College Hill will now have a neighborhood school. All those kids will be going to one school. So this is the proposal we're bringing forward to you. This is the map you have in front of you. This is the quick reference summary chart that gives you the breakdown of everything within those, for each of those schools. And then the next pages are a little bit more detailed numbers. It shows you, for example, what's going to happen with the change of schools, how many students are being peeled off. So for example, you'll see that the school that changes the most is Jefferson, but that's because we're taking 225 students, if I can go back and backwards, we're taking 225 students up here that currently attend Jefferson and peeling them off and sending them to Tamiami. So to answer your question, where's Big Sky Court? Big Sky Court is right here off of Hawaii Road.
Okay.
And Hawaii Road is just, I mean, in my personal opinion, this goes back to a city thing. That was a neighborhood that got built, and the city didn't require a walking path. They didn't require sidewalks on Hawaii Road. It's something that we're becoming very active as a district to share with the city, which is, okay, be careful about allowing a neighborhood to get built and be isolated. And that's a concern we have with the neighborhood being built down here at Serene Summit. Eventually, there's going to be a connection between the top of Serene Summit and these houses up here, but that's not going to happen for a long time. So that's going to be a neighborhood that's isolated. So what are those kids going to do when they want to walk to town? How are they going to walk to town? They're going to walk on the highway. There's our proposal. And again, I thank the committee members for being here tonight.
So are there significant differences between this and what was originally presented to the board?
No, there are not significant.
I mean, it's pretty similar aside from maybe some slight boundary changes.
What you saw last time didn't have the rural routes, the rural areas defined.
Okay.
So that's defined now, and everything in town is pretty much the same.
Like the roads aren't split anymore, basically, is another thing I noticed. Like as far as now, was that a result of the thought exchange feedback as far as not splitting the roads, or is that just something you guys decided not to?
We knew for efficiency purposes that wasn't
okay.
appropriate.
So as far as like when you presented it to the community in the presentations, the 19 comments came from that process and the online slash emails,
being
and so
able
the whole
to view it online,
everything.
from all of
Everything.
the
That
we
was-
only received one written comment that evening.
okay.
So that was 19 total. I'm looking to Shannon for confirmation. That was written email or written form, emails, postings, everything was 19 total comments.
But there is an appeal process for those who are in a twit about moving?
There will be an in-district transfer process, yes.
So maybe we should discuss that right now, like conceptually. We are reviewing attendance areas, and some of you may have been approached by people who had concerns, but the people that I've met with said that they accepted the attendance area, and I asked them to look at the policy, the 3131 that we discussed once before, and they were fine with that policy as well. So it's really kind of a matter of having an appeal in there, which is a separate matter from the attendance area, as far as I can tell.
No, I mean, eventually we should build in some sort of appeal process, if not. I mean, I remember it was referenced in the document, but we didn't really flesh out how that would work.
Well, when we last discussed the in-district transfer policy, we tabled it because we wanted to establish the boundaries first. So I think that's what we're really discussing tonight is the boundaries.
So it looks like the boundary, it's hard to see because of this picture, but the boundary for Jefferson slightly comes south of the highway to Moscow.
The boundary for Jefferson is going to be.
Do you see where I'm looking on the?
Here, I'll show you.
Just above that.
And I think that's true, but the reality is that there is nobody living there So we wanted to
So
make
it's
sure
not gonna
that-
like separate kids on Sunshine Road or anything?
Yeah, no, it's
like that?
not. It's going to keep everybody on Sunshine Road is going to be together. But again, we didn't want to really use that highway as the divider because, you know, in fact, one of the kids I picked up last year when I was driving a van to pick up kids, there was one kid who did live on the south side of the highway, just out of town. There's a bridge that crosses there. What we didn't want to do is we didn't want to have kids living on both sides of the highway and then all of a sudden they're going to different schools.
Okay.
To try to define that as a neighborhood.
Okay.
So it's Larry Street is the one that's going to be the.
Larry Street is one of those dividers, correct?
That makes sense. And so is there, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Is there, because I know, I actually walked the path to Kamiak, because I live in that neighborhood, and so I was walking the dog. And it's not really well defined how one would walk from the base of Military Hill to the back. And so, I mean, are we going to, once we approve these boundaries, put any thought into trafficking? I mean, because there are sections of the road missing sidewalks there, there are some issues, and so, I mean, how would that play out?
Well, that becomes something that Tammy works on and establishes what we see as the safe walking route, and then we establish that, and then we communicate that, and we.
That's kind of what I was
There's an
wondering.
education piece. If we feel like there's areas that need some help, whether it's missing sidewalks or needs a crosswalk or maybe needs a hazard sign, we work with the city to try to get those put in there.
But that will come after this process, we'll start mapping out. I just wanted to make sure that we were going to have an idea of where people would be walking when we tell them it's walkable.
Yeah.
Like, cool.
And that's one of the things, it's not walkable if there's a gap. And that's something we're dealing with right now on Center Street, is there are gaps on Center Street. So we have people living on Center Street past Regency that is, though they're within that mile, but we can't let them walk there because there's no sidewalk. And it's probably fine, well, this time of year is probably muddy and it's probably fine in September, but once there's snow on the ground and it's not shoveled, what are those kids gonna do? They're gonna walk in the street.
Dillon Street right off of Terraview comes to mind as well, because there's no sidewalks on either side and there's big bushes, and then there's 2 bus stops right there. And so, I mean, I go that way from work every day and I always see people like in the middle of the road just hanging out waiting for the bus. And so that was kind of what got me thinking about, hey, because if we're having all of the people, especially from the Terraview neighborhood walking, or at least, potentially walking, they're going to run into some issues, I think. So, okay.
Would you do signage? This is the safe, for Pullman schools, safe walking?
Possibly. I mean,
Even for liability purposes,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be a better thing? My kid had to get to school, but
Yeah.
if you have it mapped out, this is the safe walking
Joe, can I address
path.
that?
Yeah.
Each school is supposed to come up with their own safe walk area.
Yep.
And they're supposed to come up with a map and distribute it at the first part of the school year to the families that are in that walkable area. Now, if kids choose or parents choose to have their kids walk that way, that's their choice. But each school is supposed to have their own safe walk plan.
And I can see us working with the city to put up some signs. I mean, we're not going to be in a position to be able to put a sign up in the easement that's in front of somebody's property, but the city certainly could. So that's something I certainly think we
But
could.
just even for liability concerns, I think if you have signage or something, it would help anyway.
Well, and
They're still going to sue.
Weird little pathways too. I mean, I think most of it is just an awareness of the little strange pathways, because there's pathways in that Kamiak neighborhood that are paved and fenced and everything, and also going to Jefferson in the back way. And so, I mean, I just want to make sure that if those are mapped, we make sure to tell everyone, hey, you don't have to walk on the road. Like you have these paths and options.
So then, does the safe walking plan also define where there's going to be crossing guards and stuff like that?
Yes. Yeah.
Not that, I mean, sure, most parents will probably still drive their kids, but it would be nice to have them do
Jim?
like I did and walk 5 miles every day uphill.
Uphill
all
both
the way.
ways and
Yeah.
stuff.
In the rain.
Yeah, absolutely. But Seattle, that's a given.
Yeah.
Joe, I had some big picture views here. How does the city's 2040 plan fit in with future development, future safe school trafficking? Did they ever talk about that?
I'm going to defer that to Bob.
That's a comprehensive plan.
That's a comprehensive
Not
plan. It's
2040.
not, they didn't address, it was more wayfinding, welcoming signs. It really didn't address roads or transportation or safe walking routes.
So who would be the vehicle to get that done? I mean,
Well, the city is in the midst of a comprehensive plan. The draft goals will be released soon, but that probably in another year we'll have a new comprehensive plan.
do we have a school district participant on that? Are you on that, Bob?
Not officially, but Joe and I, we do get regular updates of any new developments and are sending comments regardless if we do have some or don't, so they know that we're reviewing those. And we are taking a more active participation in at least making sure they're knowing our concerns regarding some of these new developments right on Highway 27 and how are we going to safely pick up kids and bus pullouts and turnarounds and
Right.
and at least we can't make them do things, but we can certainly express our
Well, the
suggestions
community-
and ideas.
We might not be able to, but the community can.
Yes. Well,
See, that's-
I think community is part of that input, and we see ourselves as part of the community
Sure,
providing
sure.
input.
And the comprehensive plan process is open to all members of the public.
Right.
So it's,
So,
And I participated last spring in a forum that was held by the city, hosted by Adam Lincoln, who's the city manager, and Kevin Gardas, who's the director of public works. And they met and wanted feedback from people on this type of thing, specifically on what the city should be doing to make sure that it becomes a more walkable, bikeable city. And there was a big turnout from the biking community and the people who walk. And the challenge for the city is, what do you make a developer do when they're developing it? Because that just drives up the cost. And, you know, people are nervous about driving up the cost because you drive up the cost and you're driving that development elsewhere. And so that's the fine line it has to walk. But that results in us having, for example, on Center Street, gaps in the sidewalk. You know, what's a wonderful, beautiful, you know, family-friendly neighborhood, there's gaps in the sidewalk. Because it wasn't required that sidewalks were going to get completed when that area got developed.
My second question pertains to the occupancy of the 4 schools. We had talked about maybe 70% occupancy. So each school would have room for growth, an additional 25-30%?
Correct.
Okay, so is that still kind of the model?
We set as our target capacity, we set Sunnyside at 80%, recognizing that based on feedback from the city, that was a neighborhood, that was a hill that was going to have the most housing built. We set Franklin at 90 with the recognition that Pioneer Hill has kind of been built out, you know, and until we start having some neighborhoods turn over, there might not be a whole lot more kids on that area. And then we set Jefferson and Kamiak at 85. We couldn't go lower than that 80, 85, 85, 90 because that's how many kids we have, you know, and it's just going to keep going up.
So the last question pertains to probably something we haven't talked about, but we've thought about. Where does the new schools go? The new schools.
Right. Correct. Where do the new schools go, or if we need to add to schools, where does that happen?
Right.
well, and I'll just jump in and add, so remember that Kamiak also can have an additional 4 classrooms. So it's being built so we could add on 4, which we've already done to Jefferson and added 6 to Franklin. We know where we probably need in the future another, but again, we're going to run into availability, price, coming up with the dollars to buy property in the future. It is getting extremely hard to find anything within the city limits. And we're going to probably be forced then to go outside and possibly down the road, but it's never too late to think now about what we need to do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things that just, you know, I don't think 30 years ago people anticipated the building that's happening, but, you know, it's unfortunate that Sunnyside is our smallest school, on the hill with probably the most kids. So if we look down the road of needing to replace Sunnyside, do we look at buying a piece of property? It's going to be really expensive to find a piece of property on that hill to accommodate a school, or do we look at possibly building on that site, which is in fact our largest elementary site?
And that might be a future recommendation, is build on the playground and tear down the old and make that the playground slash parking slash. So there are some options that we can take a look at. But Joe and I have had numerous conversations on this topic, because we are continuing to see growth, and even with the changes, we'll have space, but space for how long? And so,
Well, like Schweitzer Building, that alone could completely upset the balance of a lot of things. I mean, if they're hiring 1,000 people, I mean, those are people with families generally, and kids, and all kinds of things,
And we've had conversations, and we know not all those will be here in Pullman, but definitely some will. So, and we also, we need to look at Lincoln as well, and possibility of adding on there. So, and that's probably going to come up first.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Roberta. Thank you, committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the effort you guys
Thank
put
you
into this.
guys,
This is awesome.
it's just amazing.
They did a
Lots of credit.
wonderful job, so
Yeah.
they deserve all the credit.
So glad it was you guys and not us. It's a lot of
Yeah, I'm
work.
starting to like this, just stamp the...
Yeah, that's much easier.
I'd actually like to give you a chance if you want to say any final words about this, because as I understand it, your work on this committee is now done. Is that correct?
That's next time.
It depends on what the board is going to decide, so.
But you're here and you've sat through obviously so many hours, so if you'd like to come and,
Sure. I'll make a couple of comments.
yeah, thank you.
So my name is Meg Galnick, and I was the parent committee member for Jefferson Elementary School. And so, and my child will be going to Kamiak. So I just wanted to mention that I think this whole process is actually even way more complicated than you see here. And I think there are a lot of families that aren't aware of that. And we did have, out of those 19 comments that we received, the majority of them were for the Big Sky and Santa Ana Court issue. And so, and as a committee, we voted that down as far as even to consider having them back into Sunnyside. And I think I was glad that we were able to hear them, speak, because in a situation like this, as Roberta said, it's an emotional topic. We wanted to be able to let them feel like they were heard. But in the broad scheme of things, it's really a very, very small portion. Was it 12 kids? Is it 12 kids, Joe?
Yeah.
12 kids.
12 to 17.
Yeah, 12 to 17. So in that neighborhood. So if you're going to hear any feedback from the community, it's going to be from that area. I just wanted to kind of warn you on that, because they were they showed up to the last meeting and did have some conversations and had some concerns, but I think it was I think we all agreed that the priorities were the socioeconomic, the diversity, and the special education. And there was actually a parent from that neighborhood on the committee, wasn't there?
Oh,
Yeah,
there was.
Yeah,
There
she's
was.
not here tonight. But you also, and I guess for my sake, when you're on a committee like that, you do have this ethical obligation, right? Like, my kid's going to Kamiak, it's like you have to do what's best for the community, right? And so that's really hard when your child's going to be moving. But at the same time, it's looking at it like this. At Jefferson right now, we have 513 kids. We're going to go down to 360. So when I look at it like that, and and Kamiak will have the lower numbers too,
it's like, wait a minute, everyone's winning here. Even if you're changing schools, you know, this is a small community. We see everyone at Park and Rec activities. We see, my kids have friends at Franklin and Sunnyside, and they all eventually end up at LMS. And so when people have voiced their concerns, I just have been saying, but look at it this way, you know, we're all winning because class size is going down, school size is going down, which is going to alleviate issues for teachers, for staff, for just the building itself, and for kids. So I just wanted you to be aware that there, you know, I mean, none of them are here tonight that voiced issues, so I would assume that they're kind of okay with that and are gonna move on from that, but you never know. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meg.
Thanks,
very
Meg.
much.
My name is Megan Roden, and I was the Franklin representative parent. And I live on Sunnyside Hill. And when I was on the committee, I had a pretty good idea that I would be changing schools for my children. And I went in with going, you know what, this is probably going to happen, and I really hope that transportation is going to improve for my kids if they're changing schools. And I'm so pleased with how these boundaries have been drawn that it will really benefit transportation and buses. My kids it was 45 minutes to an hour to get from Franklin to my house. And my kindergartner sometimes wouldn't always make it home in time to use the bathroom. And so there was a lot of concerns where we stopped busing. And I had a very enjoyable experience as a busing child on the west side. And the kids love the idea of riding the bus. It's so much fun to them. And they still beg me to ride the bus, and I'm not willing to. But with this boundary change, with knowing that my kids are going to be like 3 minutes from our house, a 10-minute bus ride, and that will be kind of the gold standard of the town now, I'm really incredibly happy about. And I just want you guys to know that we put a lot of effort into making sure, and Tammy is putting a lot of effort into making sure that those numbers come down, and these 45-minute to an hour bus rides and transfers will be a thing of the past, especially for little ones like kindergartners. So I just wanted you guys to know that that was my main focus and concern on this committee, and I'm really happy to see what we've created to serve that part of our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you.
Vadim, did you want to say something? Or? Tammy.
Look at Tammy now.
Okay.
Ooh, the big guns.
Scary. Yeah. I'm Tammy Laments, and I'm the transportation director, and I'm really excited about the new boundaries in that, because as of right now, we have buses going all over the place, where with the new boundaries in that, we'll be able to keep those buses in that area, and they won't have to do the whole city loop. We'll be able to at least get rid of the transfer for the elementary kids. We're still working on what we're going to do with the middle schoolers and high schoolers, but they can handle the transfers a lot better than those little ones. Two, it will make us more efficient, which that's what we are always striving for, and it will also make us a lot safer, because the most dangerous spot with transportation is loading and unloading those kids. And now where we have 3 buses stopping at the same stop, we'll just have 1 bus. And so that cuts the dangers down by 2/3.
Yeah,
So we're really looking forward to that. It's going to put a lot more work on our plate next summer, trying to figure out the new routes, but because we've always basically just kind of done what we did the year before. But now we'll be able to, but they'll be shorter, and that's what parents are looking for, is the shorter bus rides. Though those people that still live out in the rural community, they chose to live there, so they need to expect the longer bus rides. But I'm real excited about it, and onward and upward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy, I had a question for you.
Sure.
Do you anticipate the need for more buses in the future?
Oh,
or
yes.
Smaller buses?
No, I think we're probably going to go with the average or the larger buses.
And we'll probably be needing more buses.
Oh, yes, most definitely, because I have 8 buses right now that are eligible for a, I think it's called a clean air rebate, kind of, that any bus older than 2001 needs to be replaced, and I have 8. I would have had 10, but I lost 2 buses at the beginning of the school year because they're just too old.
Right.
There are some districts out there in the state that replace their buses every 10 years, and I think my oldest bus is 28 years old. So, and then too, we're starting to acquire and try to cover more special ed needs. And so those are the smaller buses, but now I'm anticipating that next year I will probably, where I have 1 special ed bus for the elementary kids, I'm going to have to start looking at 2.
Okay.
So, and buses aren't cheap, but Joe's been helping us kind of pull data together and everything, and setting goals for us to get new buses, because a lot of our older buses are starting to break down, and the costs to fix them are atrocious. I think our last bus is almost $20,000 to fix, and it really should be replaced, but the money's not there. But not only more buses, but more incentives to get bus drivers,
Good.
eligible bus drivers.
Yeah.
Good.
So
grants that you can apply for buses.
the clean air one, yeah. We've been dealing with one.
Real quickly, currently the Washington State Department of Ecology has $12 million out there for districts, and we submitted our grant, so thank you, Tammy, for getting that paperwork done. We submitted our grant. And that grant will allow you to, if you get the grant, $35,000 towards those buses that the Department of Ecology wants off the road. And it's basically a pre-2001 diesel bus they want off the road. The challenge for districts is, even though they're going to give you $35,000 for a bus, a new bus is $120,000. So you need to have, so we put in for 4, knock on wood, and my thought is, if we get it, it's going to be buy 3, get 1 free, is basically what it's going to break down to. And, you know, Diane and I have our fingers crossed that we have, if we do get the grant for 4, we have the money in the Transportation Vehicle Fund to cover that cost. Because that would just be huge for us. But, you know, Jim's heard me talk about this before. I talked about the Budget Committee. Tammy and I have a concern about the age of our fleet. Because at the rate we're replacing buses, it's eventually going to catch up with us. And
okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
and
you.
two, we need to get newer buses under depreciation so that we can keep building our TVF fund to buy new buses. Because out of 24 buses, I have 12 off of depreciation and 12 on, but I lose 3 of them this year. And so that money's not going in there to replenish the fund to buy more buses. So we need new buses to keep building that fund so I can buy more new buses.
Along with city funds for the fire department, what they do is, so they get the city budget for their vehicles, but then they are, every year, they write grants every year, because then that allows them to have those nice, shiny, fancy.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's for emergency services, but I think there would probably be a similar system for buses.
Well, I went to a WAPT meeting today with an ESD guy, and he said that usually every other year it's state will throw out this grant, and then the next year feds do. And so, and we just become aware of these grants so that we're going to go for it. Anything that we can to get our buses up to where they need to be.
Yeah.
Newer buses are safer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Tim.
you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vadim Chetkov, and I'm a college level parent representative on this committee. And when we started this process, or before I even got involved, my concern was how this process is going to play out, how open it's going to be, how community feedback going to be incorporated, because you never know. Some things like that happened behind closed doors and then just kind of thrown at community. And being part of this process, I can tell you I was very proud how open it was, how cooperative the whole work was, how well these members worked together, and how many proposals we have gone through little tweaks and everything else. So I feel really good about what we result we've given to you, and we can all stand very, very clearly and strongly behind this proposal for any questions that comes from community. So I feel really good about it, I think.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Amazing. This then concludes our discussion items for this evening. We do have some informational items, board members, so please be aware of those. And then if there are no objections, we will now recess into an executive or closed session. The purpose of tonight's executive session is personnel. We're going to be reviewing our dedicated teacher award nominations. I think that we could be done in about 10 minutes. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay. All right. And so the board will take no action, and we will adjourn after that. Thank you all.
Thank you for coming.